Hello everyone, this is Irina. Welcome back to my little channel on Germanic languages and Norse culture. If you want to support me, please like and subscribe my videos. I would really use your help. I'm a historian and teacher, and currently I am teaching at the German high school, and in my free time I make these short videos to share with you some of my knowledge on topics about, like I said, either Norse mythology or some language related stuff. Today I thought about discussing a little bit the story of a famous ring, the Andvaranaut, the ring of the dwarf Andvari, from Norse mythology. Since the series, sorry, I keep saying Lord of the Rings, but it's not Lord of the Rings, it's Rings of Power. This series has become very, very popular. It's been hitting the headlines, and I know many people who watch it. Must confess, however, that I haven't got the chance to watch it, or yeah, better said, didn't have the curiosity to watch it just yet. That's probably due to the fact that I am very, very absorbed in the universe of Peter Jackson and, of course, the books of J.R. Tolkien, and it doesn't really give me the feeling of being anywhere near the original universe. So yeah, I didn't really get to see it. Maybe I will give it a chance, maybe not. However, I did consider it a good opportunity to look a little bit at some topics, magical topics in Norse mythology, because it definitely is a great source of inspiration for many modern stories. And one of these magical rings, cursed rings, we find here is the gem of Andvari, or the Andvaranaut. It's a story related to the cycle of the Volsungs in the Norse heroic legend, or the cycle of the Nibelungs if you look at the continental variant. So this story appears in Snorri Sturluson's Skåldskaparmál. This is a manual that the 13th century Icelandic author wrote for poets of his age who started forgetting about the ancient way of writing poetry and what these old-fashioned metaphors meant. So he basically tried to teach them how to use these archaic forms of poetry again. And the reference to this story about the cursed ring of Andvari occurs when the mythical king from this story, from the Prose Edda, asks about one particular metaphor related to gold. So the question was, what is the reason for which gold is called the otter payment? And the explanation goes pretty much like this. So it is said then that when the Aesir, three of the Aesir, so that main family of gods, went on to explore the whole world, they came to a certain river and they went to a waterfall, and by the waterfall there was this otter, and it had caught a salmon and was eating it, minding its own business. But then Loki, or troublemaker Loki, picked up a stone and threw it at the otter and hit its head. He was very triumphant and glad about this catch, and they picked up the salmon and the otter and took them with them and came to a certain farm. The farmer who lived there was called Hreidmar, and he was apparently a person of great power and also skilled in magic. So the three gods asked him if he could provide a night of lodging there, by saying that they had plenty of provisions with them. They showed the farmer their catch, so the otter plus the salmon. When this farmer Hreidmar saw the otter, he called for his sons, his other sons, Fofnir and Regin, and he said that their brother, by the name of Otter, had been killed, and that he also found out who had done it. Well, now the family went up to the gods and took them prisoner, bound them, and then revealed about the otter and the fact that it was actually Hreidmar's son. The Aesir then offered a ransom for their lives. And they said, Hreidmar, you can decide the ransom yourself. We are going to give you whatever wealth you desire. So these terms were agreed between them. The otter was then skinned. Hreidmar took the otter's skin and let them know that they had to fill this skin with gold and cover it completely, and that would be the ransom, so the terms of their agreement. So Odin then again resorted to Loki, who is not only a troublemaker but also a solver in many of these stories. And Loki went into the world of the so-called Black Elves, who are apparently some kind of dwarves in Norse mythology. The distinction between these classes of creatures is not always that clear-cut as in the modern stories using them. And he finds this dwarf by the name of Andvari. He used to shapeshift as well as a fish in a lake, but Loki captured him and imposed on him as a ransom all the gold that he had hidden in his cave. When they came into the cave, the dwarf brought out all the gold he had. It was a pretty substantial amount. And then the dwarf slipped under his arm one small gold ring, but Loki saw him and told him to hand over that ring as well. The dwarf tried to persuade him not to take the ring for him, saying he could multiply wealth for himself from the ring if he kept it. And Loki disagreed. He said that the dwarf was not going to keep any penny of his gold and took the ring as well. It is in this particular moment that Andvari pronounced that the ring should be the death of anyone who possesses it. Loki, on the other hand, said that he was pleased for it to be so, that it would have power to remain like this pronouncement, as long as he would bring it to the ones who took possession of the ring. Well, he went back to Hreidmar and showed Odin the ring, and when Odin saw it, he thought it was brilliant and removed it from the treasure and started paying Hreidmar the gold. So Hreidmar then filled this otter skin, as was the agreement, as tightly as he could, stood it up when he was full. Odin went and began covering the skin with the gold, and then he told the farmer to see whether the skin was now fully covered. The farmer, looked and examined it closely, and he noticed that there was one whisker which was left uncovered. And he said that he had to fulfill his agreement up to the end. So this forced Odin to take out the ring he wanted for himself, and he covered the whisker, and then he declared that now the ransom had been fulfilled. When Odin had taken his spear and Loki his shoes, and now they had no need to be afraid anymore, Loki then said that it should remain valid what Andvari had cursed, which was, I repeat, that the ring should be the death of anyone who possessed it. And this was ultimately fulfilled. And then Snorri ends this piece of the story by explaining that is why gold is called the otter payment, and and goes on to tell what happened to Hreidmar and his other two sons, Fofnir and Regin. Ultimately, this event with the gold and the ring would trigger a whole series of other unfortunate events, ultimately bringing us closer and closer to the death of Sigurd himself, the or one of the main protagonists of the saga Songs. This curse of Andvari is not only mentioned by Snorri. I've always said in my videos that Snorri is a source that needs to be treated with care, because it is a secondary source. So Snorri is always trying to make something very coherent out of these materials that he had gathered or heard about. So like many other stories, there were probably a lot of versions of this as well, but just one of it ended up being written down. In the other source, the Poetic Edda, also from the 13th century, but containing poems older than this, we have in the heroic cycle the poem Regensmål, telling more or less the same story, but this time in verse form. About this poem, we should say that it is found in the main manuscript of the Poetic Edda in the Codex Regius, but its position is a little bit odd, as it would directly connect not to the previous poem, but to the poem before it. It doesn't even have a title. The title was given by later editors. And the stanza containing the curse of Andvari, due to poetical, metrical reasons, seems to be a little off comparing it when compared to stanzas 1 to 4 and the other ones following it as well. So we find this curse in stanza 5 and a little continuation in stanza 6. That is actually the fragment dealing with what Loki says after taking the gold from Andvari. So let me read to you in Old Norse first, and then try to translate it a little bit. So this is from stanza 5. That skal gol es gaustr oti, bröðrum tveim at bana verða, og otlingum ota at rogi, mun mins fear mangi njóta. So now shall the gold that Gust once had bring the death to both of the brothers, and evil be for 8 of the kings, and the joy of my wealth no one will have. It's very unclear who this Guster, so Gust character was. From the context, we might assume that it was Andvari. The reference to the brothers here is the sons of Hreidmar, so Fofnir and Regin. Fofnir is actually the one ending up as a dragon guarding the treasure. The 8 kings are the heroes / kings mentioned in the Volsunga saga, who also are brought to their doom. Among them we have Sigurd and Gunnar and Hogni and others as well. Okay, so this this saying of Andvari is after Loki sees the gold and takes it all, and he tries to keep that one ring that Loki eventually takes from him as well. Alright, and after the Asir give Hreidmar the gold and fill the otter skin and the whisker with this one particular ring, then Loki says in the poem Regismol, Gol ser nu reit en þú gjold hefur, mikil míns hóvuðs, síni þínum verdra selaskopuð, þats ykkar begja bani. So the gold is given, and great is the price you have to pay for my head, but fortune your sons will never find here. The bane of both of you it shall be. So the bane, the death. And like I said, if you are curious to read the story afterwards, it's very, very entertaining and full of both violence and comical moments. You are going to see what this Andvaranaut, which by the way means the gem of Andvari, brings about. So this is just one example of this myth of the cursed ring that we find in Norse mythology and inspired so much of our contemporary mythology. I will follow up this short talk with perhaps the continuation of the story or with some other entertaining bits of Norse mythology. If you're curious about some more, just hit the subscribe button. Thank you very much, and I'll see you.